This has been From the Horse's Mouth, an in-depth look at the government's commitment to changing the social and the legal landscape for labor and industrial relations in Trinidad and Tobago. This episode concludes the three-part discussion between Minister Errol McLeod and GISL's Andy Johnson.
All right, Minister, you have some interest with what is called the Commonwealth Caribbean Canadian Seasonal Agricultural Program, what has come to be known over the years as the Farm Program. And then there's this whole new sort of architecture about the Caribbean Ministers of Labor and what they do, and the meeting that was just held in Port of Spain recently. But before we get to both of them, again, you wanted to go back on the business of small and micro enterprise development and the work that you're doing to put NEDCO on a higher plane, if you like.
Yes, I thought that it was necessary that I make this point. I have really been engaged in the small and micro enterprise sector as I am engaged with labor legislation and so on. And it is to be told, I think, that as important as our concentration on making modern our labor laws, as important as that must be, and I hold to that importance, we have to be concentrating maybe at the same time, with the same energies, on our transition from oil and gas to other areas of activity, so that there is a smooth transition. I mean, I have gotten that into my veins almost. And those who have become impatient in their wait, and they hadn't been waiting as long as I waited, in their wait for labor legislation to be changed and so on, they are not considering, it seems, the other areas that are important and upon which we must begin to act now. And their impatience and their frustration sometimes cause them to be disingenuous, is that a word?
Yes.
Yeah. I went to a function. It was the passing of a trade union colleague. He was at a secondary level of the organization when I was the President General. And then on the basis of his own performance and so on, he was promoted into the management group of the company. And I applauded that. If every day the trade union movement can train and develop somebody who becomes a specialist almost in industrial relations, and we can post him as a member of the industrial court, we can put him not necessarily as a minister, as I have been put, I think we must applaud these things, This person was doing very well, and he died a couple of months ago. I went to the funeral, and I was identified very maliciously, very wickedly, as the Minister of Small Business.
Small business.
Yeah? Now, you see how you smile and nod? I smiled and I nodded, and I recognize that I am the minister with responsibility for small business. However the person may have thought about me wasn't important. I am putting seriousness in the small and micro business enterprise area. And NEDCO is going to develop into a major mechanism that is going to assist the ministry in driving this thing forward. Yeah, and I thought that I should make the additional point that we have entered into a number of memoranda of agreement with the University of the West Indies, with COSTAT, yeah, with Kariri, and so on. We want our graduates from the University of the West Indies, for instance, to come out thinking about engaging in businesses that they themselves will develop. And they will be making such tangible contribution to the overall development of Trinidad and Tobago. And people are responding well. I am particularly happy about that. We have realized up to, well, in 2013 alone, we have realized the disbursement of 347 loans to the value of $16.9 million. At this time, NEDCO is short on money for lending, and we are hoping that something is done about it as quickly as possible, because we do not want to diminish at all the enthusiasm of those people who have come with their business plans and with whom we have developed an approach to setting up the businesses and so on. I just needed to say that.
Yeah. But let me ask then, is it something that you think that you are advocating must be done? Is it because that program was underfunded, or because what was provided was so successful for it to be loaned out, and that you need a replenishment, as they say, and what has to happen for that something to be done?
Well, it is those two situations. We did not get enough funding, and I think in our enthusiasm and wanting to really satisfy the requirements of the thing, we went a little bit overboard, you know, and we may have expended a little bit more than we should have in a particular month, and then another month, that kind of thing. But we are close to the resolution of that, yeah? Right. And I think I must place on record, because this is not done often enough, especially by government officials. I must place on record my wholehearted appreciation for the work done by the board that was first appointed in 2011, and I look forward to even greater things from the one that I appointed 2-3 days ago. Yeah?
All right, and just let me, to satisfy the pronunciation experts who may be listening, you said if there was a word called disingenuous, well, some people would pronounce it disingenuous. So just for to appease them.
Very well, very well, very well.
All right.
Yes.
Let's talk about what became familiar to us as the Canadian Farm Program. How significant is that for it to be an issue that you want to address?
That is very significant. Yeah. It is significant. And it became even more significant, I am saying this for myself, with the closure of Caroni. You know, there were so many people employed in agriculture. In the early 1970s, and I was involved then, I think you might recall, we had so many people on farms, whether they were private or whether they were state. And you see the development of URP and its earlier incarnations. That was done, I understand, to have benefited some people who were unemployable on the basis that they were without skills and so on. Some people who, because of their particular social circumstances, had to be provided for with these make-work things. In 1973-74, certainly in 74, when we had begun to realize the benefits of oil. And this would have been after the Vienna conference that brought OPEC into being and so on, and the price of oil moved from $3 in our circumstances to $13, and then it just kept climbing and so on. People started to leave the land and go to these make-work programs. A number of people have been benefiting from the Commonwealth Caribbean Canadian Seasonal Agricultural Workers Program. Indeed, we joined that program as Trinidad and Tobago in 1967. When I was appointed Minister of Labor and I viewed the activities in which the Ministry of Labor would be involved, and I examined this program, I saw the benefit of it, and I realized that Trinidad and Tobago might have been the only country whose Minister of Labor with responsibility for that program had not gone to Canada and meet with the workers and so on and consider the conditions under which they were made to work. I went to Canada. It was cold, real cold. And I developed a new respect for Trinidad and Tobago's labor. When I saw the discipline with which they apply themselves in those conditions in Canada, I thought that more should be done than was being done. We had just about 600 or so employed. I met with the management also, and in 2011, we we to 783 of them being selected for work on the farms. And in 2012, we reached 893. Now, I understand that at a period earlier, we had reached more than 1,000 people. But like the thing was not being properly managed. It is being more properly managed now, and our numbers are climbing. Indeed, my involvement, and I'm saying this for the first time, I always had a kind of a Caribbean perspective to what I do in Trinidad and Tobago. And when I talked with Grenada, I talked with St. Lucia, I talked with Dominica, and Dominica had only one person on the farm program. I said, this one person must be lonely. And in talking with certain managements and so on, I got a couple places for Dominica and a couple places for Grenada. Yes? The Grenada Minister of Labor is no longer there now. This lady, something Roberts, Glennis Roberts. Yeah? I mean, she and I worked well together because I thought that these programs, hosted by a big country, inviting small states like Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean, then our approach to dealing with these programs ought to be a Caribbean approach. And I think that we have begun, and our Labor Ministers' Conference would have been, looking at that kind of situation too. I mean, the rest of the world, if I might just go off track but related, in 1926, there were these trade union leaders, early ones, who were talking about West Indian nation.
It is widely held that that was one of the earliest gatherings of people who began to talk about the West Indian nation.
West Indian nationhood. Right.
Guyana's Critchlow and people like that. T.A. Marisho in Barbados and people like that.
Clement Payne of Barbados and so on. Right? And they started to identify not just the next penny that the workers must get, How are we going to cull this West Indian nation that we're talking about? We have to mark out our own economic niche. That's my better way of expressing it. Trinidad's oil is going to be the engine of this thing. Guyana's landmass is going to provide our food. Jamaica's bauxite is going to be an essential building block. Barbados's sugar works, because they were more modern than the rest of us, that will provide our sugar. And you remember the days of Sea Island cotton and so on?
Certainly,
right? They are going to get into textile manufacture and provide for us our garments and so on and so on. It was well worked out. And that was 32 years before the European Common Market came into being. So here you had the child, so to speak, educating the parent. You know, if you were considering us to have been children of Britain. You follow?
Yes. Yeah.
Today, we are nowhere nearer. Notwithstanding our propping CARICOM and trying to go forward with it, but in spirit, we are nowhere nearer to what those earlier people were talking about. And this inspires me to approach the issue as I am attempting to do. So that program is doing well, and it is generating earnings for the 863, I give you a number, yes. 893 persons who are now employed. I don't know the extent to which people send their money back home, but we are realizing some 70 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars through the employment of those persons. Now, whether those persons are going to come back with the skills that they develop in Canada and invest it in Trinidad and Tobago's development of agriculture and food and so on, is a matter that has to be looked at, is a matter to be considered, and we must be preparing the infrastructure that will attract them to come and do for Trinidad and Tobago the good work that they're doing in Canada. My respect go to all of those people. There is a particular one of those workers who has graduated to the ownership of a farm in Canada and doing very well. He comes every year, I think he comes, is it at Christmas or Carnival? And he has invited me to come to Rio Claro and so on, where his family lives and so on, and eat some wild meat and things like that. And I said to him, the last time he invited me, I said to him, make sure that we are within the hunting season.
Yeah, I think I saw him featured somewhere about the other day. But if the program, if the workers work and approach the thing as how they used to, a lot of the money, a lot of them save up their money and come back. They would buy things and bring back, but a lot of them come back with money to spend, to demonstrate the benefits of the fact that they went out in the cold and in a lot of cases, difficult conditions.
It's really excellent. Yeah. It's excellent. You know, when I retired as the President General of the OWTO, it was after I had done that job as President General for 21 years. Some people wanted me to stay on. I said no. At an earlier time, I am now 69. Okay. Yes. I could have held your hand and carried you to school. At an earlier time, in 2004, I decided that I was retiring for two reasons. One was that I was up and down the place negotiating pensions and pension plans to satisfy workers who would retire at age 60. To tell you how we came to age 60 as the retirement date. Back in 1982, 83, under George Weeks' leadership of the union, one Lloyd Austin, as general manager of Texaco, wanted to lower the level of staffing in Texaco. And they attacked those persons with service up to 10 years, younger people. And they served this, retrenchment notices to all these persons, a couple hundred of them. And Comrade Weeks and I met those workers at the car park at the medical center in Pointe-a-Pierre. And we, addressing the workers, We had not yet discussed how we're going to deal with this question. So we were being, responsive on a spontaneous kind of basis. And it occurred to me that we can in fact do something about this. And I asked the permission of President General George Weeks to lead the workers up to the admin building. And George said, "You sure?" "Yes, PG." And he left me. And I took the workers up to the admin building. Well, we entered the gate in a way that I will not want to
You will want to repeat.
repeat. And the company got the message. And we engaged ourselves in some serious deliberations. And we also engaged the assistance of then Minister of Labor, Errol McLeod. I mean, my respect always is paid to Errol McLeod for the contributions he made. And the union's proposal was that you could not be sending so many young people away when there are other young people coming out of our school system and so on, can't find any place to go. What message are you giving to them? No, you don't do that. We need to look at our retirement age. Make some room at the top insofar as people's ages are concerned. And we might consider reducing the retirement age from 65 to 60. If anybody wants to blame anybody today for their retiring at age 60, blame Errol McLeod. But I was considering the spaces that we can make available for those young people. Every one of those retrenchment notices was withdrawn. And we engaged in deliberations that saw us improving the lot of the pension plans and so on, and encouraging people. Some people were given special incentives to go. If you are age 58 and you had planned that you will retire at 65, and you had built your house or sent your child to school on the basis of that, now you come and say that I must go at age 60. Something has to compensate me to some extent. And we worked out all of that. Now there are indications coming from Europe that the retirement age should go back up to 65 or even to 70 in some cases, Now, you don't do that unless you are going to consider, especially the young people. I mean, there are 75 million young people in the 200 million people who are today globally unemployed. And Trinidad and Tobago has to see itself in the context of that and what kind of development plans we are going to be putting in place to deal with that. What kind of education system we want to continue to have. Do we have an education system in which somebody could go and study something that will see them going to Iceland to do a work rather than study something that have them very seriously engaged in the business of building Trinidad and Tobago? I'm becoming excited by it. Yeah.
Well, the idea of taking back up the retirement age has to do with something else on the conundrum about the fact that there will not be enough. When you look into the kitty, they say there's not enough funds there to fund retirement and Social Security. So people have to work longer in order to prepare for others who will come and inherit.
Now, I hope I'm not talking out of turns, but there are certain aspects of that we must not eliminate from the equation. When we set up our pension plans, it was so that everybody who was employed, yes, would have been seeing themselves as gaining pensionable service and so on, and when they reach age 60 or 65, you go home and you have this to get. Today, so many people are being employed